Hello students, welcome back to Priyasha's English Hub. I'm here again with the next chapter of Hornbill. As you can see from the slide, this is Ranga's Marriage from a snapshot, chapter number 3, class 11th. Theme. The theme of the story is the story Ranga's Marriage dates back to the early days of British rule, when life in villages was slow and child marriages was common. Okay, so this was the time when child marriages in India was very common. It is very interestingly shows the manipulations done by the narrator to bring a change in the idealistic views of Ranga about marriage and gets him married to an 11-year-old girl, Ratna. Due to the narrator's meticulous planning with the village astrologer, Ranga ultimately gets married to Ratna, with whom he had fallen in love on first sight. Earlier in the chapter, because Ranga was an educated boy and it was very rare that in the village of Bangalore and even go abroad, go abroad, not abroad actually, out of station, out of town to have his further studies. So Ranga was amongst them who had gone out of station to complete his study, and when he came back his ideas about marriage were completely changed. But when he met with Ranga, did he really follow that notion of being married at the age of maturity and all? Let's see. No fancy title of the story. In the beginning, the narrator describes why he had opted the title Ranga's Marriage. The narrator comments why he had not given any elaborate title to the present story like Ranganathan's Viva or Jagannath Vijaya. The reason is that the story is about a common boy Ranga and his marriage. He is an accountant's son. Who is an accountant's son? Ranga himself was an accountant's son and native of village Hoshahalli. Means Ranga belongs to a village which is known as Hoshahalli. The village of Hoshahalli. The narrator mentions that his village is very small and it is not mentioned in geography books. It is really an irony that in India still this village is not being mentioned anywhere, neither in geography books nor in map. Still, he speaks highly about his village. The narrator is actually proud of his village, Hoshahalli, and he speaks highly about his village. Even the local doctor, Dr. Gundabhatta, who has visited many places outside India, finds it an impressive village. The village is famous for its sour mangoes and creepers growing in the village pond. The leaves of this creeper could serve as good plates for serving afternoon meals. So students, these questions generally come in question papers like what are the things that are famous in the village Hoshahalli. So what are the things? Mango, sour mangoes and creeper. The leaves of this creeper could serve as good plates for serving afternoon meals. But the narrator, Shyama, says that real appreciation of the village can be felt only if one visits it personally and gets acquainted with it. Okay? Ranga's homecoming was a great event. As I have told you earlier, that Ranga was amongst the very few persons who came, who actually goes out of town to complete his studies. So when Ranga came back, it was a sensational thing for the people. They wanted to know whether he has changed or not. So Shyam recalls. Who is Shyam? Shyam is the narrator himself. Shyam recalls an incident that happened 10 years ago. The village accountant was the first one to gather enough courage to send his son to Bangalore to study. Not many people knew English then. At that time, not many people were knowing English or they were not using English frequently. That was why Ranga's homecoming was a great event. A big crowd went to greet him. The narrator rushed to see him. Everyone was surprised to see that Ranga had not changed. Once they realized that Ranga was unchanged, the crowd of people slowly disappeared. In the beginning, lots of people gathered around the house of Ranga to check whether he has changed or not. But when they satisfied and that Ranga is still the same person, the crowd melted. Only the narrator continued to stand there, but the narrator didn't go. He was waiting there. Ranga had a smile on his face. He still followed the rituals of his caste by respectfully touching the narrator's feet. Narrator was highly impressed by Ranga when he did proper namaskar to him and touched his feet. The narrator, after being impressed by his cultured and refined and civilized traditions, narrator decides to get Ranga married. The same afternoon, Ranga went to the narrator's house with a couple of oranges in his hand. The narrator thought that such a fine and generous boy should get married because it was the time when child marriages used to occur. So he decided that he should get married and settle down. He inquired about his plan to get married. The narrator asked Ranga what does he think about marriages. Ranga said that he didn't want to get married soon. He was searching for the right girl who was mature enough. Secondly, he wanted to marry a girl he admired. He was not in favor of the arranged marriages prevalent in society. This was his view after being educated, and he had mentioned the name of such persons who got married at the age of maturity. So he said that I am still looking for a right girl, and till he got a girl of his choice, he wanted to remain a bachelor. This was his view. The narrator was distressed as he wanted to get him married. When he learned about Ranga's views on marriage, he became disappointed, but he made up his mind that very soon he would get Ranga married. The narrator found a suitable girl for Ranga. Finally, the narrator found the most suitable girl for him. It was Ramarao's niece Ratna. Ramarao's family is the second family in the village who was educated. Ratna was the niece of Ramarao, a pretty girl of 11, who had come to stay with him after her parents died. Means Ranga was an orphan girl now. Her parents had died in an accident. So she was living with her uncle. She was from a big town. So she knew how to play the veena and the harmonium. She also had a sweet voice. She was a good singer too. The narrator starts playing matchmaker. The next morning, the narrator told Ramarao's wife to send Ratna to his house to fetch some buttermilk. Okay, it was the plan of narrator that he would go to the house of Ramarao's and will ask Ratna to come to his home. Ratna knew the narrator as he was a frequent visitor to Ramarao's place. So narrator was not new to Ratna, and he was a frequent visitor at their house, so Ratna was very much familiar with him. So she agreed. Ratna came to the narrator's house. When Ratna came, he requested her to sing a song, okay, as he knew that she was a good singer. It was Friday, so she was wearing a sari. Ranga's disappointment. Meanwhile, Ranga came to the narrator's house and stopped at the threshold. It was also the plan of narrator that meanwhile, he would ask Ranga to join him. So Ranga came to the narrator's house, but he stopped at the threshold. He didn't want the singing to stop, but he was curious to see the singer. He was enchanted by her and kept glancing at her. After a while, Ranga asked about Ratna. The narrator quite cunningly told him that she was married a year ago. Okay, when Ranga got excited after hearing the melodious voice of Ratna, he asked the narrator who she was. But narrator, as it was the part of his planning, intentionally told him that she was a married girl. Ranga was extremely disappointed to hear this. The narrator noticed signs of disappointment on Ranga's face. Ranga left after some time. The narrator's plan. What was the plan actually? Next day, he made another plan. The next morning, the narrator met the astrologer, better known as Shastriji, and taught him about his plan in Ranga's case. In the afternoon, the narrator met Ranga, who appeared as disturbed as he was yesterday. So he became disappointed after knowing that Ratna was married. So the same disappointment was again noticed by the narrator when he met him next. The narrator then suggested him, let's come and meet with the Shastri and let's try to find out about what was worrying you. Ranga did not protest and went to meet Shastri with the narrator. Shastri pretended surprise and spoke about meeting the narrator after a long time. The narrator almost ruined his own plan by saying that he had already met Shastri that very morning, but Shastri saved it by changing the sentence. Understood? Narrator had already met with the Shastriji and told him about the plan. But when he again met with the Shastri, with the astrologer, with Ranga, by chance he forgot. And when the Shastri was pretending, he was showing that he was meeting him for the first time, narrator by mistake was just going to tell him that we have met today morning only. But Shastriji stopped him and saved him from destroying the plan. The narrator told Shastri that something was worrying poor Ranga and they had come to seek his help. After making a pretense of some calculations, Shastri said that it was about a girl. To the narrator's question as to who that girl was, Shastri said that she had the name of something found in the ocean, like Kamla, Pachi, Moss, Pearl, or Ratna, the precious stone. Narrator's plan succeed. Finally, the narrator's plan was bearing fruit. There was some surprise on Ranga's face and even some happiness. On their return, Shyam passed in front of Ramara's house. Ratna was standing at the door at that time when they were coming home. The narrator went inside Ramarao's house and came back a little later. He had a surprised look on his face. He told Ranga that there was some wrong informations given to him. Ratna was not married. He also inquired of Ranga whether what Shastri had indicated was true. Shyam asked Ranga that he is thinking about Ratna. Is he really thinking about Ratna? Ranga admitted that whatever Shastri said about the girl was true. He wanted to get married to Ratna. Ranga and Ratna get married finally. Finally, Ranga and Ratna got married. All the idealism of Ranga was forgotten as he was totally fascinated by Ratna's beauty and sweet voice. They were very much impressed by the narrator as because of the narrator they got married. So finally they named their first child Shyam as because of Shyama's, the narrator, efforts they had got married. Years later, Ranga invited the narrator for dinner on the occasion of his 3-year-old son's birthday. The son was also named Shyama in honor of the narrator. Thus Ranga was leading a happy married life with Ratna. Thank you. Have a nice day. I hope you have understood the summary. Do prepare all the NCERT questions. Take care. Thank you.